Ooh,
The
yes, Brinson.
Texans
I
to
love
win the
this.
division. Yeah, we're going deep here. I think that with the Texans and the Panthers and the Colts, you kind of need to take your stand here and say, if I like one of these teams to win its division, or I like one of these teams to be a much improved team, then you need to get that bet in now before we really start to
Mhm.
get into training camps and you see whether injuries happen to other quarterbacks or other key players on teams that might be considered ahead of these, like, if oh God, I hate even speaking this into it. Let's just say that if the top running back on the Atlanta Falcons, which is yet to be determined because they still, the depth chart has to sort itself out. If that running back suffered an injury, or let's say the quarterback in New Orleans, I don't want to say anybody's name and injury because it feels bad, but like
Yes, yes.
if Derek Carr got hurt in training camp, and it would completely flip the odds for the NFC South.
I mean, they have Jameis Winston. I don't know if it would completely flip it.
Well, then that's an indictment of the Saints.
No, I'm saying that they have one of the better backup like that's not a great example because they have one of the few backup QBs.
Yeah.
Like they have.
The point being is like there's two things that could happen. One, we could see injuries happen that could cause these odds to shrink, and then two, what if CJ Stroud looks awesome in training camp? If CJ Stroud is an awesome offseason, and most people usually have a great offseason, we could see those odds move up. So I think with the Colts, with the Texans, with the Panthers, if you're interested in betting on those teams to be successful this year, you want to consider getting it in earlier rather than later, because if the rookie quarterback plays well going into the season, those odds will shrink. Obviously, if the rookie quarterback plays poorly, the odds will get longer. You'll feel bad, but you're already putting your eggs in that basket anyway.
Brinson, it's funny that you mentioned this now. I think we both talked about a little bit last week when we talked about the AFC South that the Texans felt like you should sprinkle money on. Brinson's pouring it on. And Robert Woods last week, I think last Friday, he just signed with Houston and kind of held his first long press conference and was just asked his thoughts on the team. And he said he felt like that the Texans 2023 version feels a lot like the Rams did in 2017. And that was a Rams team that I think went 4-12 in 2016. They fired Jeff Fisher. Robert Woods signs with them in 2017, about a month after they hired Sean McVay. So he's going to practice. He's saying, man, McVay's firing everyone up. Everyone's buying into this. And then that team made the playoffs, went to the Super Bowl the next year. So you have a guy who was in that situation saying this feels very similar. So to hear someone from the inside saying that and specifically comparing them to another team, man, you can sell me on the Texans, even though my next bet is going to completely contradict Brenton. I don't hate it. I like the idea of the Texans winning this division.
I mean, I love it. Like Katie just picked, and I like the Bengals to win the Super Bowl, but 10-1 to win the Super Bowl, and you're almost getting 10-1 to win your division in a division where, let's not sleep on the fact that the Jaguars were 3-7. 11 weeks, I believe, into the year last year, or 10 weeks in going into their bye, looked done and reeled off some wins and won the division. Houston they've upgraded quarterback with CJ Stroud, massive upgraded coach, in my opinion, from Lovie Smith to D'Amico Ryans, as Breech points out. And the comparison that Robert Woods brings up is interesting because when Sean McVay was hired, he brought in Wade Phillips. As he's like, look, I know what I know. I know offense. I got to focus on being a CEO here. I want to bring in somebody I can trust to run my defense. Well, D'Amico didn't bring in Norm Chow or anybody like that, but he did bring in Bobby Slowick from the 49ers. And I think that the passing game coordinator there, that is really intriguing to me. You look at Devin Singletary and Damian Pierce as running backs in that backfield, and then you add Robert Woods, one of the best blocking wide receivers out there. You have a good offensive line, and you don't have the DeAndre Hopkins Elite One that they had back in the day when Watson and Hopkins were playing, but you have like a wide receiver depth chart now with Brandon Cooks going that I just think is like, it's good enough. And they also had a Dalton Schultz who doesn't get enough credit. I think you look at those pieces they got on defense and you add D'Amico Ryans, it just wouldn't shock me if the Texans won 8 or 9 games and took this division.